good morning, and welcome to the Brenda Perryman Show right here on TV 33 WHPR, Comcast 20 in Detroit. And boy, do I have a show for you this morning. I'm so excited about it. First of all, how many of you have ever thought about writing a book? Or how many of you write a blog? Or how many of you just write? You write about your life. You write about the things that you think about that you believe are important. How many of you are pastors who write a sermon? We write all the time, and writing can be our door. It can open many doors for you if you write correctly. And my first guest, we will talk about that. And then we have people from Turning Point, which is they deal with domestic violence and sexual awareness, sexual assault, and all of this. And this is Domestic Violence Month. I don't want to say Domestic Violence Month. That isn't right. But we have to be against it. It's my personal cause, and we'll get into that a little later. So stick with us. And I'd like to introduce my first guest. She's a friend of the show, and I'm very happy to have her, Tenita Johnson. Good morning.
Good morning, Miss Perryman. How are you?
Miss Perryman, I'm in class. You're in class. Hey, Miss Perryman, how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
That's good. That's good. You, on Facebook, you put so many things down mistakes that people make all of the time,
right.
And they don't even know they're making them, and they end up putting them in books.
Absolutely.
So first and foremost, tell me why you love writing and correcting and all of that.
So I've been writing probably over 17 years now. I've been editing a little under 15 years.
Wait a minute. 17 years?
17 years since high school.
Oh, since high school.
Yeah, since high school.
Did you get all A's in English?
I did, actually.
Oh,
yeah.
Isn't that wonderful? And what high school did you attend?
Communication and Media Arts High.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow,
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Oh, right behind St. Mary's of Bradford.
Absolutely. I was in the second graduating class, yes.
Oh, wow. St. Mary's of Bradford.
It was brand new when we were in there. Yeah.
My old parish.
Right.
Yes. Yeah. And did a teacher inspire you or someone inspire you to go on and pursue writing?
Well, I was involved with the yearbook, and there was the Scroll, which was the school newspaper, and then I went on to go to the University of Missouri Columbia, which is known for journalism.
Oh, great school.
Absolutely. So there you are required to work for a newspaper in both copy editing and writing before you can graduate. So
such a tool.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as well as you write, had you ever thought about going into law? Because they
did
say,
not. No.
English majors and people who write, going into law would be just great for them.
I don't really like debate, so I don't think I would like law.
So after you got out of college, what did you do?
So I came out of college, and I've been doing communications for a few different companies. I've done it for marketing and advertising firms. I published my first book. My second book will be out this year. And I've been editing for authors a little over, I would say, 6 to 7 years.
Wow, that is wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
And how many books have been involved in your editing?
Oh, God. I would say in those years, probably over 150 books. And there are some repeat offenders, if you will. So I have writers who are writing 3 and 4 and 5 books, and they just come to me for all of them. So
now, for example, say if I wanted to write a book about my life,
mm-hmm.
because a lot of people start with themselves.
Of course, it's easy.
As opposed to fiction.
Mm-hmm.
Then some people write fiction as opposed to writing nonfiction. But
right.
Okay, if I'm going to start with something I know about, I'm going to start with myself. What would be your first pieces of advice for me?
So the first step is, and you probably know this, you've been a teacher before, but we've got to go back to English class, and our teachers would always tell us to do an outline. And you've worked for, and you've done plays and productions and everything.
And people don't realize I always start with an outline.
Start with an outline.
I don't start writing.
Right.
Just,
Right.
I want to know where I'm going.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That way, when you write, you're not all over the place. Because when the editor gets it, now I've got a monster on my hands that I've got to try and reorganize. Well, chapter 1 is chapter 8. I do send some back. There are some that need a little bit more than what I offer, and that's called developmental editing, mostly my fiction authors. So they need to develop the characters more. Their eyes need to be more than green. They need to develop the scene a little bit more, and that's just not something that I do at this time.
So you get a book. Okay, so I give you this book, and I outlined it first. Did you say we should outline maybe in chronological order if I'm doing my life?
So ideally, if you're doing your life, you want to outline the main points that you want to hit. Because guess what? Even if I'm doing my life, it doesn't necessarily have to go in order.
And you don't have to talk about everything you did in your life.
No, you don't have to talk about every little thing. You want to talk about the major things. If you've been diagnosed with cancer, you may want to start the book with where you are today with your diagnosis with cancer and then work backward. Some people like to start with the day, they were diagnosed and work up to today. It just, whatever works for you, but you need to have an outline and know where you're going. You can't just write, because when do you know the book is over? When do you stop?
Absolutely. And you want to keep the reader with you.
Absolutely. So the first thing I tell people is, a lot of people who are writing books these days, Brenda, they are losing the main creativity point, which is tell me a good story. I don't care if it's fiction or nonfiction. I need you to tell me a good story. And I need you to tell me a good story in the very beginning, or guess what? I put your book down. And that's me as a reader and an editor.
Absolutely. Well, you want to take the reader on a journey.
Absolutely.
And you want them to stick with it.
You want them to stick with it, Brenda, but you want them to be able to feel your book.
Absolutely.
So if I'm reading something, there has to be something in your book that I can relate to.
Absolutely. So after the outline, what would be next?
So after you've done the core outline, I would say start writing. And there are people who write on paper. If that works for you, that's fine. But before you send it to an editor, it has to be typed. So it's almost like double work. But start with that first chapter that you have outlined, or if it's easier for you and you know what you want to say in chapter 8, start writing chapter 8. Don't feel like you have to go in order.
Right.
And some people don't even use chapter numbers. They use titles. So that, hey, this chapter may be chapter 8 now, but guess what? I may have to move it to the intro. So.
To me, it seems like books should start off with something that gets your attention.
Absolutely.
That makes me want to find out as the reader.
Right. So there has to be mystery. Let's start with the cover, Brenda.
Okay.
There has to be mystery on the book cover. You can't say my book is How to Overcome Cancer, even though that may be what your book is about. You've got to be more creative than that to make me intrigued. With the title and the graphics. They all work together. But ultimately, a person picks up your book in the bookstore. They look at the front cover, then they flip it over and look at the back cover. But ideally, you want them to purchase it, and you want them to read what's inside.
Right. Absolutely. So what would you encourage them to do as far as getting a cover done?
So you definitely want to reach out to a professional cover designer. There are certain specifications for the cover. So even though a person can design flyers or, they design a graphic for your Facebook page, that doesn't mean that they're familiar with the specifications for the publishing industry. So you definitely want to check their background for that. But you want to pay for a quality cover. Even if you take a picture from somewhere, you still want to pay for a quality cover, because your cover will speak for your book when you're not speaking. If I'm in a bookstore, your cover has to sell itself. Your cover has to sell the book.
You can't be everywhere your book is.
Right.
And so, okay, we've done the cover. We've outlined.
Mm-hmm.
We have an attention-getting beginning.
Yes.
For the book on cancer.
Right.
Say, for example, we say the verdict of only 3 months to live floored me.
Right.
And then we go from there.
Absolutely. So now you've got me hooked. The verdict of what? If the front cover doesn't tell me it's about cancer, and that first line doesn't tell me that it's about cancer, it's like, well, wow, what is she, 3 months, where is she going with this? Let me keep reading.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the mistakes that people make when they're writing a book, besides just writing Just right.
So, Brenda, I would say, unfortunately, with social media, I get a lot of authors who want to say laugh out loud or the lingo for Facebook and Twitter. And that's okay if you're writing a fiction book and you're referring to a character who's reading a text message from someone. But most times it does not work in a book. There are people who want to put smiley faces in the book and emoticons, and there are pastors who want to turn their sermons into a book, but they don't take out the speaker notes of, say amen and raise your hands. So those are the type of major errors that I see that stick out from the jump.
Well, if a pastor tells you that they're going to write a book, well, then do you tell them, make sure you take out those points?
Absolutely. If they come to me beforehand, yes, I tell them that. But a lot of pastors already come to me with their book written, and I'm spending time just removing the extras.
Well, let's talk about the value of an editor. Why do we need an editor?
So a couple of reasons you need an editor. First, if you're going to be a writer, you want to perfect your craft. Of course, we all want to become better. I'm an editor and a writer, and I want to become better as both an editor and a writer. But ideally, if you put out a book, let's say your first book had 50 errors, 60 errors, and you ask somebody, you're asking your readers to pay, let's say $13.99 for this book. I'm going to feel like I didn't get a quality product. You asked me to sew into your product, but you didn't sew into your own product. And now when you put out a second book, more than likely I'm not going to buy it, because guess what? Your first book had 50 errors. One or two, the readers are a little bit more forgiving. But if you get reviews on Amazon, they cannot be erased. And a lot of people are saying, you had a good storyline, you had me hooked, but I couldn't get past the spelling and grammatical errors.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I see so many errors when I'm reading even stuff on Facebook.
Right.
Oh,
yeah.
I mean, and I read something it was yesterday or the day before, Life Goes So Fast, and I told them, I said, you have several errors in here.
Absolutely.
They said, we know. Even on television, the character generator. Sometimes
yes.
I on Channel
You'll
4,
see the errors.
I see so many errors.
Absolutely. Because somebody's manually typing that information in. So
yeah, but they need to type it in correctly.
Absolutely.
I mean, I don't want to sound stuffy or anything like that,
right.
but you want people to enjoy. The thing about reading is for education, for enjoyment, knowledge,
right.
all of that.
Right.
So,
and even if it is for education or a self-help book, I've still got to enjoy it. You still have to tell me a good story.
Absolutely. Your book, this first book, is Encouragement, Next Exit.
100 words of encouragement. Yeah.
And this is so good. I have it on digital.
Oh, thank you. The ebook.
Yes, I bought the ebook.
Right.
And you have another book coming out.
I do.
I think I want the hard copy. I have one of my books for you.
Okay.
I brought it
Thank
in
you.
this morning to give to you.
Oh, good. Thank you.
My latest book.
Okay.
So I did think about you. I said,
Did you have an editor?
It's poetry.
Poetry still needs an editor.
Well, I did this one.
Okay.
I'm not doing my other book, She Who Limps Is Still
Got it.
Walking.
Okay.
I'm not doing that one, but this one I do. I think I did an excellent job on it.
You got a good handle on it.
I do, because people know what I mean.
Right.
And this book, tell us about this book.
So this book is the Associated Press style book. It comes out every 2 years. So this is what I use as a reference as an editor and a writer. So it tells you if you're having problems with common words like affect and effect. And you're not sure when to use them. This style book will help you with that.
And that is a common mistake.
That's a common
that
mistake.
People make.
Yeah, that one is huge.
They don't even check it sometimes.
No, and spell check won't catch it because it is a word.
It is a word.
It's just used improperly.
Do not rely on spell check. Don't rely on that all the time. Okay, and this is excellent. Wow.
So the Associated Press style book, you can get it at Barnes & Noble, or, you can order it off Amazon.com. And like I said, it updates every 2 years. So they're probably not taking anything away. They're probably more so adding things into it. So.
Well, this is a great book.
It's a great resource to have if you're serious about the writing craft. You want to get it.
You know, as we were talking about nonfiction, but what about fiction? You said a lot of times the characters aren't well developed, and I find that with plays too. I mean, oh goodness, I'm sorry.
Right.
Some plays, and I actually have somebody here in the studio who has been in a play or two that I've actually written.
Wow.
But they were good plays.
They were good
I
plays.
mean,
You
the
wrote them.
No, the audience, they got standing ovations.
Oh,
The
wow.
audience, they they liked them.
Hmm.
I've directed over 100 plays. I
Absolutely.
should know how to write
Yeah.
a play.
Yeah.
But you know, I would just write one every now and then to kind of mix it up. And then 2 years ago, I did the big piece that was underwritten by the Michigan Council of Humanities. So if it was good enough for them,
Right.
good enough.
Right.
We have Venus on the line.
Woo!
Good morning, Venus. Good morning. Can you hear us?
Good morning.
Oh,
Hi,
hello.
Venus.
How are you? Can you hear it? Call back. Call back. I don't know what happened. Ah. Well, she could call back. But what I'm saying is you have to have a structure to writing a story,
Right.
writing a play, all of that. You have to have a
You
structure.
have to have structure, or you'll be all over the place.
Oh, and I have read, people are always giving me plays to read. And I want to say, don't do this to
Mhm.
me.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, because I'm not an editor. I'm your
Right.
friend.
Right.
And you may not want to hear what I have to say.
Absolutely.
Somebody gave me a play one time that they went from, I'm in the living room, they're in the living room, and then the next line, they're in a car. They didn't even close the scene.
Right. How
or
did you get from the
anything
living
like
room
that.
to the car? Right.
I don't know.
You need
Is
to
that
show
Venus?
that action.
Venus? Hello?
I'm here.
Okay, how you doing?
I'm doing well.
Hi, Venus.
Hi. Well, my question was, Brenda, you covered it before I could get on the line. Part A, I was asking about editing and poetry, this being Poetry Month. But secondly, I was wondering if Tanisha has an opinion about editing urban literature.
Urban literature?
Yes,
Urban literature.
street lit.
Street lit. So basically, Venus, what happens is usually there is slang, and there's even a correct way to write slang. So a lot of slang, we take off the ing and we just use the n. But if you don't have that apostrophe there, it's still considered improper. So even with urban lit, you still need an editor. And if you have that slang, or if you have a dialect, the important thing is to carry it out throughout the book, which is very hard to do. Very hard.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And you, I don't know, who's your audience? You know, that's another thing.
Right.
Who is
You need to know your
audience?
target audience. Right.
Okay. All right, I think that clears it up for me.
Okay.
Thank you, Venus.
Thank
All right, now I can go back and listen. Bye-bye.
you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
And that's very important. Who is your audience? Who are
Absolutely.
you trying to reach?
Absolutely.
And that should be something that's in your head initially. We have Sam on the line. Good morning, Sam.
Yes, I can barely hear you. But I wanted to ask your guest, I'm an editor also, and does she find that people come to her with stories that are just not that interesting? People come to me with stories of how they recovered from drugs or alcohol or got out of a gang, and most stories like that are just the same old story, and they think that their life is somehow different from other people's lives,
Right.
but it's all been said before in most cases. Some people have outstanding stories, but most of the stories are the same. Does she have that problem also?
So, Sam, to answer your question, I get that a little bit. And what I would say to that is, if you are a recovering drug addict, or, there are many people who've been diagnosed with cancer. So you see a lot of books on people recovering from cancer. There has to be something in your story that stands out and makes it different. The book publishing industry is very competitive. So I can't tell you how many books there are on recovering from cancer or recovering from alcoholism. So your
Exactly.
story has to stand out, and that's where a developmental editor may come in. They may not be ready to publish. They may need to develop that story a little bit more.
Yes, I agree. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sam.
All right, bye-bye.
Very good point. Very good point. Because you have the idea. What makes you
What makes you different?
right?
Right.
Did you pick yourself up off the ground and become this great business owner,
Right.
or corporate person, or this motivational speaker, or
Right.
did you save some lives? What happened?
Right. Right.
And there's go on.
I was going to say there definitely has to be something to make you stand out, even if it's miscarriage or it's loss of a child to death, or if it's cancer, or if it's alcoholism or drug abuse
Or healing.
or healing. And even with Christian authors, there has to be something different about your book than I want you to walk away with greater faith. Because at the end of the day, that's what all Christian authors want you to have. You're either writing to encourage or to increase faith. But yours has to stand out and be different. And there has to be, and usually that's centered around the stories that you tell.
We have DJ 8 Mile on the line. Good morning.
How you doing today?
Just fine, thanks. You have a question?
Oh yeah. First of all, I want to give a shout out to TV33, to Miss Perryman, her host. How y'all doing? The rest of the TV33 family, R.J. Watkins, J.D. Hill, Billy, Mr. Richard. My name is DJ 8
We
Mile
have
of International Hip Hop.
Another couple minutes.
My question is, I currently push and promote hip hop music. So in the process of me promoting hip hop music, I apply ebonics and phonetics when it comes down to titling songs. Now, I heard you give suggestions of how people to apply, I call it ebonics,
Right.
in their literature.
Mm-hmm.
So, what I would like to ask you is, when it comes down to applying ebonics and phonetics, what is some of your methods in order for you to put a word out there for it to come back up?
So early on, when you sit with your editor, you need to tell me up front, look, this has ebonics all throughout, or you need to tell me what the language is before we even get started, so that I'm not correcting things that look like errors, but you did them intentionally.
Okay.
And that's a simple meeting or a communication with your editor. But again, I would ask that if you start that way, you have to finish that way. So if a character is speaking ebonics in the beginning, they can't be an intellectual by the time we get to the book unless they started out as a child and now they're an adult. Then that works. But
I know exactly what
right,
you mean.
Right. So and I get that. So if they're already an adult, they have to carry that ebonics. If that's the way that they're going to speak, they have to carry that throughout the piece all the way to the end. And again, you've got to know your target audience. If that's going to take away from the book, if it's going to upset the reader or make it difficult for them to read and continue, you may want to consider taking it out, because a lot of times people can't get past the dialect, or it makes it difficult for them to read.
Right.
Okay. Now, I would like to give an example.
Well, we just have like 2 minutes left of the.
Oh, okay.
And
Well, thanks a lot, Miss Perryman. I'm enjoying your show.
She's going to be back on, so you save
Thank
your
you.
questions, okay? Thank you so much for the shout-outs, too.
Okay, y'all have a great day now.
You
Thank
too.
you. Well, we have Renee on the line. Good morning, Renee. We got to go quick. Good morning. Hello? Renee?
Tanisha, because I'm not sure how to spell it. I know it's Johnson. And can she quickly do some points for people writing fiction? I'm writing the book, The Characters Live in Detroit, and it's a book never been done before.
Oh, it's a new story. So you would like her to give you...
Okay, I'm going to have to turn this up because I can't hear you.
What?
Hold on.
Okay, first and foremost...
Okay,
you
okay.
need,
What's the question?
why don't you contact her by email or something like that? Tanisha,
Right, Renee. Renee, you can reach out at email info@soitiswritten.net, info@soitiswritten.net.
info@soitiswritten.net. You got that? You got that? I hope so. Well, Tanisha, we can't.
Yes, soiswritten.net.
Yes.
So it is written.net. And her name is Tanisha, Tenit.
T-A.
Tenita.
Tanisha. Don't
You
ask.
know, I'm just the teacher. Here.
Right. I know.
Tenita Johnson. So thank you so much, Tanisha.
Tanisha. I'll answer to both.
And thank you, Renee, and everybody. Tanisha will be back. She'll be back in a couple of months, and we'll carry on. But info at soitiswritten.com, and you have another book here. It is
The Christian Writer's Manual of Style.
Christian
So specifically for Christian writers, if there are certain styles for quoting Bible verses and citing verses and documenting things from the Bible, so they definitely want to pick that up as well.
Okay, thank you, darling.
Thank you so much,
Another
Miss Perryman.
jam-packed show. Time goes by so quickly.
I know it
doesn't
does.
Everybody, stay in your seats. You'll love our next segment.